Hey there and good afternoon. A little bit early today, originally scheduled for 5 o'clock. We're doing this at 2:30. It will still be viewable at 5 p.m. in case you're joining at 5 p.m. But my other half got a lucky vaccine appointment. So, gosh, you know that takes priority these days. So putting this up just a few hours early, I know it will be just as valuable for you. Let me share my screen here. I have some interesting things going on today. Presentation is critical. If we haven't figured out how important it is in the last 12 months, we certainly know by now. And yet so many of us are really a little bit behind in what we need to do. How is it that if we're out there representing our career or we're representing our business or whatever else we might be representing, how is it we level up the playing field so that we're seen as that real expert? If we are working on a team, how is it that we are naturally seen as a leader, whether we're in the leadership role or not? By the way, that's how you get promoted very, very quickly. Today's lecture is how to be a presentation guru. My gosh, that sets a pretty high standard. So we're going to talk about a lot of different things that go into presentation today. Number one is owning your space. Understanding what you have to work with. We're going to talk about all the mechanics of what you see here and everything that goes into putting together a really top-notch presentation. But you do have to become a master at whatever your subject is. So that's not what we teach you here, but we do teach you how to be this presentation expert that really begins to change the game. If you haven't seen me before, John Krant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well, in case your resume needs a little bit of a tune-up, or same for your LinkedIn profile. By the way, your LinkedIn profile, even if you're in your own business or whether you're in your career, it needs to be a three-dimensional sales brochure. It naturally will drive the reader to one singular conclusion. My gosh, if I work with that person, if I hire that person, best business decision I'll make today. Now, we're not actually going to say those things about ourselves, but whatever we do say has to drive them to that conclusion. By the way, if your LinkedIn needs work, you can see this video right here, right on my webpage, selfrecruiter.com, halfway down the page. You can start and stop, make me large, make the slides large, really use it as a step-by-step tutorial to make your LinkedIn come to life. It has to become a living, breathing sales brochure about you that generates excitement. So let's look at some new ways to think about speaking and presenting. Your job, the moment that camera comes on, is to dazzle. So how do you get yourself there from a presentation standpoint, the subject matter standpoint, all the different preparation pieces? Now, when we speak and present, there's a lot of different reasoning that might go into wanting to have a better outcome. And that could be we want to grow our business and we're presenting for that purpose. Or maybe we want to transform our career through even a number of Zoom outreaches and calls and networking events. Or maybe it's simply you'd like to be seen and perceived as a leader and expert, and right now you don't feel that you're being treated or elevated that way. That's our individual fault. It's our job to elevate our brand, and a good presentation will help. You have to become this standout, and more than anything, you're going to have to be remembered. If you're not memorable, gosh, we go by the wayside pretty quickly. Now, this past year has been a tough one for all of us, and hearts are with all those folks that suffered personal loss. Certainly in this, we have 500,000 Americans that are no longer with us, and all those families that are attached to all those people, and that it's hard to be optimistic and bright and the sun will come up tomorrow. But the sun has to come up tomorrow, even if it's a nuclear holocaust, which we sure hope it isn't. And so it's your job to have this eternal optimism. Even if it's a bad day, whatever it may be. So here's the secret you may not like. Mediocrity. Mediocre. I love to read this one, so I'm going to bring this center stage so I'm not a distraction. I'm going to read it for you because I just love to read this one. Of only moderate quality, not very good, ordinary, average, middling, middle of the road, uninspired, undistinguished, indifferent, unexceptional, unremarkable, unexciting, run-of-the-mill, pedestrian, lackluster, forgettable, amateur. Okay, so comes out plain vanilla, fair to middling, no great shakes, not up to much, and bush league. Well, those things do change over time. So why do we start here? Because the bulk of what you see, be it internal career Zoom conference calls or Google Meet or whatever platform you might be using, really doesn't matter. They're all very, very similar in functionality. Whatever it might be, your job is to not be mediocre. Now, this past year has also allowed me to look over the shoulder. You do realize we're all in the same house or apartment or wherever it is you are. If we're all working from home, or a significant number of us that can are working from home, that means there's multiple people in the same place that really wasn't set up for home working, which means we have to get creative with our space. I'm going to show you exactly where I'm standing a little bit from now, so you get a little bit of perspective. Your job is not to accept the perspective that you are standing in. Your job is to create a whole new perspective, which is what I'm doing here. So most of us are pretty mediocre when it comes to video conferencing. In fact, prior to the pandemic, I occasionally would have someone ask me, oh, do you do anything with video interviewing? I'm like, no, because I strongly don't recommend people video interview prior to pandemic, because most people are just terrible at it. And they'll be judged by the wrong things. They're not prepared, and it will be a disaster for most individuals. And yet, over the course of this last year, we have had to get comfortable. We've been in this greatest mass experiment, really, of all time, to see if snap the fingers, is remote working starting tomorrow possible? And for many organizations, they found out it really was. And I was able to keep up my productivity. So if most folks are mediocre, guess what you have to be in how you prepare for your video conferences? Just a little bit better than mediocre. I want you to do better than that. I want you to reach mastery. And mastery is that opposite of being mediocre. But you're going to have to start with the product. And you are the product, whether you're working right now and you're presenting as part of your job internally to teams, or whether you're presenting for your business externally. Everything you showcase is a representative of that product. So really, it's part of your personal branding, and personal branding is really everything that can separate you from somebody else. So go back to the basic question. What is it that makes you better than the other people? What makes you a potential standout in your career? If we're going to be a presentation guru, first thing you have to think about is, what is this video session all about? Am I on a conference call? What are my objectives? Those are normal objectives that you need to accomplish as part of your work, but you also want to manage perception. How do I want them to see me in addition to the work I deliver? How do I want them to feel about what I bring to the table in addition to the work that I deliver? You're going to have to think about a lot of things, and it starts with, why am I giving this talk in the first place? No matter what your style, you've got to be bold and confident and optimistic. Now, if you've tuned into some of my other lectures recently, I certainly this year have been much more forthright with telling people that in reality, I'm shy and introverted, which usually causes my friends to burst out laughing. They're like, sure, John, we get that. You know what? They react that way because they've never seen it. These are my friends I've had for a very long time. But you know what? They weren't my friends way back when I was very shy and introverted. So shy, I like blend into the paint on the wall. That creates a different problem that you eventually have to get out of. So it's not just getting past those things. You know, being shy and introverted doesn't go away, even though you have lots of technique to get past it. Even though I go give public talks, non-pandemic time, to all sorts of audiences and interact with folks, how can I do that and still be shy and introverted? Well, a lot of it is understanding what is expected, and then you have to step into the spotlight and showcase that. I can be bold and confident and optimistic about what I teach because I'm an expert at what I teach. Absolutely, you've got to know your content. You have to know your content. You have to know your content. If you don't know your content, you are not an expert. If you have to look down and read and go, oh, what comes next? My gosh, I've already tuned out. You're not an expert. The script has to be here. And if you're not ready for it to be here, boy, we're going to have to use every technique and trick in the book so that we present as if it's just right here. And that takes a lot of practice. We have to be a storyteller. So besides knowing our content, it's not okay to I know my content. and then you tell a dull story that puts people to sleep. Well, that's not going to help you either. So you've got to be this bold, confident, optimistic person. Sun will come up tomorrow, no matter what. I've got to build chemistry and confidence with people watching. Boy, that's tricky, isn't it? I have no actual contact with these people. I can't really see them. You know, when I'm in a room with 60, 80, 100 people or more, I can feed off the energy that I get. I can interact with people. I can go up and down the aisles. I make it very interactive. But suddenly in a virtual world, we seem isolated. We seem like we need other people's approval. Part of being a presentation guru, and this is not about letting it go to your head, is not needing the pat on the back. We all want it. We all want it, yes. But you have to not need the pat on the back so that really you can go after what you would like. You can showcase what you are without needing someone else to say, hey, good job, good job. I want you to be critical with yourself. And when you don't do a good job, you know what should happen? Critical, critiquing thought and a strong slap on the hand until you correct it and go, next time it's going to be even better. How do I do that? You also have to deal with all sorts of distractions. You may become distracted about something. Someone may comment in and be distracted. Now, in a live audience, I have to deal with people speaking kind of out of turn and at any moment, any time. And truth be told, I actually love that. I'm very interactive. I can react in the moment, even in the middle of a thought. That's how you have to be too. What if you are giving a live presentation and maybe it still is over video conferencing, but someone interrupts you to ask something right in the middle of the thought that you really wanted to make a point behind? How are you going to deal with those distractions? And yet, I'm a big believer in you must take questions on the fly, because that's the way to demonstrate that you're the expert. Now, years ago, now my father is passed away now. He passed away at 91 a few years back. But a number of years ago, he had come to New York to visit, and he had come to see me speak for the very first time. He knew what I was doing, and he was very like, wow, that's amazing. I don't know how you got into that, John. I'd spent my whole life watching him speak every single Sunday, Catholic deacon. So I grew up very Catholic, I can tell you, and you know, watched my father up there every single weekend giving a talk. Great speaker, by the way. I learned a lot from him. But he'd never seen me speak before. He comes to see me speak, and afterward, he's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how do you just have the instant answers to all those questions?" Well, I'm an expert in my field, so it's not stressful. Someone asks me a question, I just have to answer it on the fly. Does not mean being shy and introverted that I'm also not nervous or full of anxiety or anything else. Gosh, anxiety is probably my number one issue I deal with, and I manage it. And you're going to have to think about these things too. You know, becoming this presentation guru is about you bonding with your audience, because it's a date. I don't care if this is the people you work with on your team or some other business that you're pitching to for your own services. It's about them, or it will be if it's effective, because it's a date. So how are you going to get them essentially to fall in love with what you are offering, whatever it might be, fall in love with your skill set, realize that, my gosh, interacting with you is very, very different. Well, the first thing we have to do as a speaker is establish our credibility. We have to showcase a few reasons why we might be the one. Here, let me showcase a few of them for you right now. You know, as I said before, author, career coach, and speaker, resume, LinkedIn guru, my book, a website, all sorts of background material. Pretty quickly, those items establish credibility. There are other things you can do. By the way, those are the first things I put in place to establish my credibility. Then I started to talk about them, started to get out other places. Since then, I've given hundreds and hundreds of talks. I've given talks at the New York State Department of Labor in multiple locations, certainly many, many locations of the New York Public Library, including Job Search Central, NYC Service, which is a wonderful, wonderful organization that works with a lot of different folks. Harvard Business School Club of New York City. I was pinching myself when I was talking to them. I'm like, you know, I don't have that background, because they really like that background. But you know what they like more than that background? They like the right answer. They like the right information. That's why they booked me as a talk. Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Programs. I've spoken with them several times. A lot of great, interesting things going on there. If you have your own small business and would like to grow it exponentially, a lot of great secrets in their program if you can apply and get into it. Grace Institute, a number of other folks. So the public talks help establish the credibility. You may have some of those things, or you may not. You could be presenting for your career at different conferences and showcase those in a different way. Of course, numerous media quotes will help you as well. It is not as hard to get a media quote as you think. You simply have to realize that everybody has a first day. I had a first day doing what you see now. And that first day, I'm like, will they know me? No, because you're unknown. So how do you establish your credibility? First, know your content. Be an actual expert at your content. Whatever you don't know, go learn it. And then what's not possible, you accomplish by aligning the sun, the moon, the stars, working backwards. Not possible, but if it was, how could I align the sun, the moon, the stars, work backwards to figure out how to accomplish this? In terms of getting media hits, pretty simple. I could go to Google, and I'm not a big fan of Google because I don't like to be tracked that way. But you know what? This time I mean it. I mean, go to Google, you'll have different results. Click the news tab, put in a few keywords at whatever it is you're looking for. And you know what you're going to find? Whatever your expertise is, put those keywords in. Whatever the major players are in your field, put those keywords in. Whatever the major challenges are that are going on around you with your competitors, put those words in. And what you'll quickly find, because you're searching under the Google News tab, is you'll find all sorts of articles all over the country written in exactly about the subject matter that you could add expertise to. Now, if you didn't connect those dots already, every single one of those articles is attached to a journalist that writes about your subject matter. Now you can put together a target list, maybe 50 journalists that you could send out a press release. Oh yeah, you'd have to put a press release together to introduce yourself. That's exactly what I did. Showcase my credibility in the press release. New voice in job search. Here's all the reasons why I'd be the right one for your next article. And then I sat there on the home office couch, you know how that goes, sending these darn things off one at a time, going, oh, I hate this. Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? And I won that argument. It really was. I didn't like what I was doing, but you know what? I decided it was worth this 2-hour investment of time. Just do it. Just go back and do it, John. Boom, 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 boom. 2 hours later, got a call from the Wall Street Journal. It was a very, very good use of my time. You get the Wall Street Journal first. Boy, don't all the rest follow pretty quickly. So establishing media quotes, that will certainly help you. Even if you're just in your career, if you have something to add, that can help you. Absolutely, without question, you must be the master of your content. You have to know your content like you live and breathe. That's why you can answer any question on the fly without having to think. That means I know it backward, I know it forward, any order that ever comes up, any phrasing that ever comes up, any scenario, and any question. And you have to handle it all in the moment. Not in the order which you'd like. Yes, everybody puts together something in the order which they'd like. And then the first person to interject in the talk takes you right out of that order. You have to learn to get past that. Of course, content is king. We have to make sure our content fits the information is the new currency. I talk a lot about that in my LinkedIn lecture, but I'm really talking about it from a perspective of how you extract information out of LinkedIn. Today, what we're really talking about is how we begin to seed information out there. And it comes down to having really good content. I have to know the what, when, and why of giving it all away. Yeah, giving all my expertise away. You did notice these lectures are free. Absolutely. When I investigated what I wanted to do, and I looked at people that were successful, all the research told me, well, John, if you want what you're dreaming about someday, you're going to have to get very comfortable with giving it all away. No, give it all away. Doesn't mean that I don't work with clients. Of course I do. And then I don't give it away. They hire me. But as far as these public lectures, you have to be willing not to hide the pieces behind the curtain, but simply give it all away and trust that enough people will go, well, obviously you just proved to me you are the right one. I'm going to turn around and hire you today. We're in a visual world. You've got to make it visual. Not great enough with great content if there's no visual. It has to be interesting. It has to draw them in. It has to somehow begin to build that chemistry, and it has to seem like your finger is on the pulse. It has to be timely. And from all of that, a little bit of this romance, a little bit of the engagement really looks more like the second part there. If it was really only that easy to give a great talk. We have to think more in terms of unusual, unconventional, unexpected. Presentation mastery is all of these things here, but every aspect of these things here. Also understanding how you don't very often need to look at your content because you own it. You have to be looking at the screen, at the camera. Well, let's rephrase, not the screen, because then we're watching you watch the screen. I don't want to watch you watch the screen. I don't want to look at your notes. I want to see you fully engaged right here. Compare this visual to the visuals you normally experience when you're out there on your video calls. What do you see? How often do you see someone even on your team presenting at this level? This is how you influence other people. This is how you have a chance to really be persuasive and showcase the fact that you're all of these things and you're this natural leader and certainly probably the future of their company. It's your job every time that little light goes on to inspire who's on the other end of it. So we're going to have to discover your mojo, even if it's a little shy and hidden behind the bushes. We're going to have to discover your mojo. And then we're going to have to hit the chessboard with some strategic sharing to build a little bit. Now we have to be ourselves. I already confessed to you, I'm shy and introverted. Am I not being myself because you see what's here? Well, we're all multifaceted individuals, human beings, very complex. This is who I am also at the same time, shy and introverted. So we're going to have to find a balance where you give yourself permission to get outside of your comfort zone and yet still retain authenticity and integrity. And you have to be genuine. That's what's going to work. That's what's going to get either people on your team buying in from you or businesses you're approaching buying into you. Presenting is also all of these things. It's a chance to further your research and marketing and advertising and influencing. Wow, there's so much, but it all hinges on, do you inspire or are you an energy vampire? I don't know if you know what an energy vampire is, but I've certainly been able to look over my other half shoulder and see a few of them in Zoom meetings, and they suck the life out of the room with endless talk going nowhere about nothing. And yet sometimes they may be further up the ladder. You have to sit and think about your job is to control perception. Your job is to teach them how wonderful you are or what you can bring to the table. It's part of your overall brand management. It's part of the things that connect to what you might do on LinkedIn in how you present yourself or how you might present yourself across social media. Let's just do a few shares. I'm going to pull these center stage here just so you can see just a few more shares of things that I've put out there. This was up at WHCR, Voice of Harlem Radio, but up there 4 or 5 times now. Great place. They do a lot of great discussion. 2 hours of drive time in the morning. I love it. Here I am on Arise TV with Christina Brown doing interesting show called Our Take, talking all about job search and the challenges within job search. Here I am talking really about my own health regimen and really realizing that the difficulty staying focused on a proper health regimen is the same difficulty as an effective job search. It just takes a lot of work. We don't typically want to do it. We'd like something easier. Here I am giving my online boot camp a couple of years back. That's about to go online permanently here very, very soon. Let me come back center stage here so you can see me as well. We're going to have to brand ourselves as a speaker. I'll make this a little bit smaller, be a little bit bigger for you here. You sit and think about what I might put out there on LinkedIn, what I might put out there on Twitter. By the way, this is whether you're an outside professional speaker or you're just presenting internally. You still need to control all the perception of your brand, and most of that is controlled by what people see on your LinkedIn and your feed and what they see on your Twitter feed. It's really about letting them look over your shoulder to see what you're reading, doing, sharing, attending. I hope you're reading, doing, sharing, attending the exact thing the people at the very top of their game would do. Which conferences would the top person go to? Which books would the top person be reading? Which person up there would be talking about the most challenging aspects of the business and not be afraid? Yeah, that's all part of it. And then you realize over time, these have a tremendous branding effect for you that flows across multiple platforms. Ultimately, presenting it is about your soft skills, your ability to even use a pause like just that without internally freaking out going, oh, I left dead air for a moment. Maybe I left dead air for a moment for impact. That's something that you're going to work with your soft skills, all the things you see here. But again, notice the last two in the list, friendliness and optimism. Sagittarius here, I am as optimistic as they come. At the same time, I'm also the worst pessimist you've ever met. That comes from my recruiting training. In recruiting, when it's a really good firm, they teach you to think at every moment, how is it going to fail? How is it going to fail? How is it going to fail? It's the only way you think about in advance how to prevent the failure. A lot of failure in recruiting, a lot of deals don't come to fruition. The magical deal that does come to fruition has a very big price tag with it, which is wonderful. But how do you get those things to come to fruition? So let's go back to some basics. Who's the presentation for? I have to understand who the audience is if I'm going to engage them. This is a chance for you to take control, build the more mechanical engagement. But what is engagement? That's everything. That's the pauses. That's the inferences. That's when I'm listening. That's the reaction on my face. Everything is a little bit of the engagement. My own pleasure in giving the talk, and people on the other end enjoy seeing the talk because I seem to be enjoying. Much harder to do when you're not in front of someone. Really, with everything that you do, you're going to have to filter it through a question. It has to be about their needs. So I want to think about the nuance in how do I create this discussion? How do I present what will be engaging to somehow make it come to life? So first off, I have to create a great slideshow. Full disclosure, my other half is a creative director, and yes, I absolutely benefit from all that branding control and commentary and everything else that helps. Small changes change perception. You know what? Today, anybody can go into PowerPoint, anybody can go into Keynote if you're on a Mac, and there are an enormous number of tools available to create something, but you're going to have to become a practiced individual that looks at the visuals, that understands the basics of a little bit of graphic design logic and how you win over audiences. Do you notice that there's really not a great deal of text on my slides? That's a terrible, terrible mistake people make, is filling up their slides with everything, and then they read it for you. I mean, I'd like to stab myself in the neck with a fork. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to read those slides for me? I could have read them myself. So let's take you through a few visuals. We're going to give you the secrets all in the visual setup as well. Now, these I just pulled off of some of the Zoom conferences that are out there. I wanted to have a variety to talk about. Chemistry and confidence. But by the way, in hiring, the only two reasons you get hired, this is assuming you are capable or qualified, would not consider anybody that was not capable or qualified. I do not hire you because you're capable or qualified. That goes without saying. I hire you because why are you interesting? What makes you tick? What are you all about? So chemistry here, I don't really think so. Confidence, no, I don't really feel that as well. I don't even know if this person knows they have an opportunity. Every time that camera flips on, there's an opportunity. I know being at home these days, a lot of us would actually like to be more comfortable. I'd like to be more comfortable too. But you know what? If I came on camera in jeans, t-shirt, tights, 5-finger shoes, and whatever I might normally wear out on the sidewalk, I don't think you'd listen to me because you're expecting this visual. You have to meet the visual. And you know what? This one doesn't meet the visual. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do you see it here? Well, I don't see chemistry. I don't see confidence. In fact, I don't even see you. I need to see you, and I need to not see the sky. Didn't really give it any thought as to how things were going to present. And really, they're really hiding with this visual setup. And that's not a way to win. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Don't really detect either of that here. Really, I don't need to see your ceiling, and I certainly don't need to look up your nose. We have to think about that. We have to elevate the camera to the correct level so that we're looking at the camera just as if we were in a television studio. By the way, how do you like my studio? I am far more comfortable in the studio. And that's why I place myself here. It helps with the visual. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Let's see. Do we see it here? Well, chemistry, no. Confidence, oh, you know what? I'll give them the confidence piece. Doesn't mean they won, because I'm still not interested in the ceiling, and I detect that your confidence has a lot of attitude that goes with it. Didn't get your lighting or white balance or all that right, so you're bleaching out. Doesn't really work. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we see it here? Let's see. Chemistry, no. Confidence, yeah, I'll give you the confident vote. I'll give you the confidence vote right before I take it away. Because I suspect this person doesn't actually have confidence simply because they chose a ridiculous boom microphone. This is not a gamer setup. What this person's doing is they're hiding behind their boom mic, and they're hiding behind this background that pulls more focus than they pull. And I suspect that's because they really don't have confidence. Could be wrong, don't really know. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Let's see, we got the chemistry piece. I feel it here. Confidence, I feel it. Oh my gosh, we're getting somewhere. Not all the way, but we're getting somewhere. Attention to detail. Don't let yourself get upstaged. Look at the framing. This giant picture right behind your head constantly pulls my eye to try to identify what it is. And that does not, again, it doesn't keep people focused on the product, which is you. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Let's see. Do we see it here? You know what? I'll give the chemistry vote. I'll give the confidence vote until I take some of that away. You know, it's really the same thing. Failure to pay attention to the detail. Now, they were going after something really nice. I would like this framing if really there weren't all this reflection in the pictures. Plus, the pictures are really going to cause people to try to zoom in with their eyes to try to figure out what these pictures are. Again, we've allowed ourselves to be upstaged. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Let's see. Do we see it here? You know what? I'll give the chemistry vote. I'll give the confidence vote. Kudos. You know what's not so kudos? Don't wear gigantic headphones. That's not a good look. Again, it's a little bit of a crutch that really cripples this visual from being a great visual. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Do we get it? Oh, look at that. They got the chemistry vote. Give them the confidence vote. This actual background adds focus to them versus drawing the attention away like the bright horizon picture did on the gal with the boom mic. But don't wear medium headphones either. They're a distraction. You may like listening to those headphones, but that is not the purpose. The purpose is to be present, to be organic, just as if you're sitting right in front of them. Chemistry and confidence win the race. Let's see. Do we see it here? You know what? I'll give them the chemistry vote. I'll give them the confidence vote. Look at that framing. Nice framing. Yes, could use a little more light on the one side of their face, but it's really nice framing. Overall, a little bit of interesting in the background without being distracting, and their product stays center stage. If everything was equal, this is the winner. Begin to think about how you are assembling your visual, because you know what? If you're going to win this presentation race, this means you're going to have to focus on your setup. You're going to have to plan ahead. You're going to have to really practice till you're blue in the face before you create some winning video conference that's really going to nudge people to whatever the next destination is, either the buy-in from your team or whether buy-in from another company that you may be pitching. Now let's get over to the actual nitty-gritty of how do we accomplish what you see today, which is a whole nother level. So let's talk about setups. We're going to bring this center stage just so you can see it a little bit larger and I can talk about it a little bit more. So as you look at this is actually my other half's setup for work. You know, everyone's working remotely these days. So notice how they set it up. They took a small table, they put it right up against the window. Now, you know what? I have hazel eyes. My eyes are a little sensitive. That would be pretty tough for me. I tell you that as I'm standing in the middle of a blinding white light storm. That's why I look good on camera right here. So I can certainly take it for a short amount of time or a certain amount of time, but all day long be a little bit too much light for me. And yet this setup produces amazing light. Amazing light is required. Now, this setup gives the natural light. Cannot look great without natural light. In fact, my sister represents one of the counties down in Florida, as a tourist destination. And I happened to be doing a little bit of Zoom troubleshooting with her. And you know what? I said, oh my gosh, Shelly, it looks like you're in a dark, dingy bedroom. And of course she was. She's in her second bedroom, which is her office, her home office, not properly lit, no swapped out background. And gosh, it affected perception, energy, everything else. You know, to look great, maybe you've got the windows like this, or maybe you don't. Maybe you have to add lighting. Here's the example of a nice large size light ring. And by the way, that light ring can be color adjusted. It has some buttons to shift from yellows to blues to red, depending on how your camera and how the lighting needs to be. So proper lighting or bringing your own lights would be very, very important to the look. You know, if you'd like to sound great, I hope I sound pretty good today. If you'd like to sound great, you're going to need a condenser microphone. Sure, laptop has a microphone built in. It's fairly decent. Don't sound like a tin can too many times through that one. But if you want to sound great, you're going to need an external condenser mic. Not that expensive. You plug it in, and boy, don't you sound great after that. The other secret about presenting, if you'd like to do it exceptionally well, is you must be standing up. This is something, of course, I teach in my interview lecture. If you have not seen my interview intervention lecture, that is coming up. Let's just come in and make a pitch for it. That's coming up on Thursday at noon. I really recommend it. It's really all the secrets, including some of this, on how you separate yourself out for the interview. So let's think about that. All interviews, I recommend doing standing up. First off, it frees the diaphragm, that muscle in the middle of your body, drops your vocal register, which creates more chemistry, more personal feel. Also frees you from any accidents. I don't know if you saw that ABC News guy back in, I think it was April or May, June, early on in the pandemic, doing his little ABC News brief from home. Unfortunately, just below his suit, he was sitting in briefs, which he claimed were exercise shorts. Ooh, I didn't realize that'd be on camera. You know, we have to think about all of those things. So let's think about the proper mic. Let's think about the proper setup. Here's my actual setup. Yes, I am standing directly in front of this. Notice that I have it on an ironing board, if you haven't figured that part out. It is in my bedroom. It is stacked up right next to the edge of the bed. In order to get the camera at the correct level, maybe I'll just come on screen here so you don't feel so lonely. Let's see. There we go. Maybe I can. There we go. In order to get this at the right level, gosh, I had to put a box of my books. I had to put another empty box on top of that. I had to have boxes and books. Yep, I'm using my own books as a mic stand on the left. I had to stack it all up so the mic's at the right level, the camera's at the right level. Now, there is one difference in the visual you see here. This visual, I was using the camera on the laptop, and after a few lectures, was just not happy with the video quality. And you know what? I had to add an external camera on top of the top of my MacBook Pro. And the external camera produces a much better image. Image is everything. So you have to think about what an external camera is not that expensive these days for a decent camera. Logitech, if you're looking for one, they have lots of varieties, lots of price points. So we've got to first off get this at the right level. If it's not at the right level, I can't look straight ahead into the camera. We don't want to be looking down. We don't want to be looking up. The reverse view, you'll realize I'm actually standing right in front of a wall. In fact, right there, right behind me, I'm knocking on the wall. That's it. It's like 2-3 inches behind me. I'm standing in 1 square foot of space. I know exactly where I can move. I can stay engaged and stay within the parameters. The other thing you notice is I do have a nice big green screen attached to my wall, and I have light boxes all the way around me, in front of me, and on both sides. Also have to have things like a little stool here, because sometimes I need to set down my little remote clicker. I might need a little bit of a refreshing little drink to stay hydrated. All those things have to be really at the ready. If I had notes or anything like that, I could put it off to the side. But keep in mind, the whole goal is to be able to work without notes. If I needed notes, a better thing to do would be to set this up so there's a wall really behind the laptop, and I could put my notes right behind the camera so I can just look all around the camera if I had to look at notes. Your goal is to let's get ourselves to where we don't have to look at notes. Now, as I said, camera might have to think about changing that to a better camera if your camera's not producing a sharp enough image, but nothing will become masterful without the real work. Nothing will become masterful without a lot of practice. Practice makes perfect. You're going to have to practice until you are blue in the face. Practice, 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 practice until you can wake up in the middle of the night and just regurgitate it. There it goes. Take your first step or whatever your next step is and understand your goal is to repeat, 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 repeat. Well, thank you for joining in today. I will be back on Thursday. That is a 12 noon lecture, and that is my interview intervention lecture, all the secrets to really control your next interview, which is most certainly going to be a video conference. Even more important on that video conference to be the person that makes the connection, is engaging, raises your brand level. We'll talk all about that Thursday at noon. Today, Presentation Guru, please do share this with your friends. If you need help, gosh, I think you can find my services right under the services tab over on selfrecruiter.com. And thank you guys for joining in today. Appreciate it.